For 3,000 years, no living being had ever walked out of the Crimson Forest. 40 war fleets had vanished near its edges. 3 ancient empires stopped writing about it after their scouts never came back. Even now, most star maps just show a red circle and one word next to it: avoid. But according to a small, almost forgotten report filed by a board watch officer on a frontier moon, something changed. Someone walked into the Crimson Forest, and he did not come out screaming. He came out with a bucket of fish. That someone was not a soldier. He was not a scientist. He was not sent by any government, any army, or any king. He was just one old man, carrying a fishing rod, a tin cup of coffee, and nothing else. By the time this story is over, you will understand 3 things that no alien historian could ever explain. First, why the most feared forest in the galaxy let a stranger walk through its front door without a fight. Second, why the animals inside it, creatures that had killed armed scouts on sight, chose to sit beside him instead. And third, what the forest had actually been hiding for 3,000 years, and why it may have been waiting the entire time for someone exactly like him. This is not a war story. This is not a rescue story. This is the story of an old man, a fishing rod, and a secret the whole galaxy was too afraid to find. Let me show you exactly how this happened. Marcus Doyle was 68 years old when he decided to stop running. He had spent most of his life working for the Frontier Engineering Corps, a human division that helped build outposts on new worlds. He fixed water pipes on ice moons. He repaired power grids on desert planets. He had seen more strange skies than almost any human alive. But none of that mattered anymore, not since his wife passed away 2 years earlier. After that, Marcus stopped wanting big skies and new worlds. He wanted quiet. He heard about the planet Vera Prime from an old friend, a retired trader named Holt. Holt told him about a small frontier world near the edge of explored space, a place most ships skipped over because of one landmark on the surface. A forest. Not just any forest. A forest with a name that made pilots change their flight paths. The Crimson Forest. Holt warned him. He said scouts from at least 6 alien species had gone missing near its tree line. He said even the local traders would not fly low over it, not even during the day. He said the forest had a strange red light that came from somewhere deep inside the trees, and nobody who saw that light up close ever explained what it was. Marcus listened to all of this. Then he asked one simple question. Is there a river? Holt blinked at him. That's what you want to know. Is there river? I like to fish, Marcus said. Rivers are quiet. That answer should tell you almost everything you need to know about Marcus Doyle. He was not reckless. He was not foolish. He simply did not scare easily. And after a long life of fixing broken things for other people, he wanted one small piece of the universe that was just his. So he bought passage on a cargo hauler heading toward the edge of known space. The trip took 19 days. Most of the crew avoided him once they learned where he planned to go. One young pilot, a Vendari trader with pale blue skin and large black eyes, tried to talk him out of it on the final night. You do not understand, the pilot said. My people have old stories about that forest. We say the trees remember. We say the forest chooses who gets to leave. Marcus only smiled. Then I guess I'll be polite. The cargo hauler dropped him at a small trading post on the far side of Vera Prime, about 2 days' walk from the edge of the forest. The post had maybe 30 residents, most of them miners and supply workers. When Marcus told them where he was headed, the room went quiet. An old Ashinar merchant, tall reptile-like being with dark green scales, set down his drink and stared at him. "No one goes into the Crimson Forest," the merchant said slowly. "No one who wants to keep breathing." "I'm not going to fight anything," Marcus said. "I'm going fishing." The merchant did not laugh. He looked almost sad, the way someone looks at a child who does not understand danger yet. But Marcus was not a child. He simply had a different kind of courage, the quiet kind that does not need an audience. He packed light: a tent, a fishing rod, some tools, a small water filter, basic rations for a few weeks, though he planned to catch most of his food. He also packed his old service knife, not because he expected to use it as a weapon, but because a knife is useful for 100 small jobs when you live outdoors. The walk to the forest took 1 full day. As he got closer, the trees changed. Far away, they looked like ordinary tall trees, dark red bark reaching high into the sky. But as Marcus got closer, he noticed the red bark seemed to glow faintly, especially in the shade. Not bright, not dangerous looking, just a soft, warm light, like the last minutes of a sunset caught inside the wood itself. He also noticed something else: silence. No birds, no insects buzzing, no small animals rustling through the underbrush, the way you would expect near any forest edge. The quiet was not empty, though. It felt heavy, like the whole forest was holding its breath and watching him arrive. Most people would have turned around right there. Something about that kind of silence tells your body to run, even if your mind cannot explain why. But Marcus stood at the tree line for a long moment, looking up at the glowing red trunks, and instead of fear, he felt something closer to curiosity. "Well," he said out loud, to no one, "let's see what all the fuss is about." And with that, Marcus Doyle became the first recorded being in 3,000 years to willingly walk into the Crimson Forest. He did not run. He did not carry a weapon raised and ready. He walked the way a man walks into his own backyard, slow and unbothered, boots crunching softly over fallen red leaves. The first hour passed without incident. The forest floor was soft, almost spongy, covered in thick moss and fallen leaves the color of dried blood, though they were not blood at all, just the natural color of the strange trees. Shafts of golden light broke through the canopy here and there, cutting through a light mist that clung close to the ground. By the second hour, Marcus heard water. He followed the sound, pushing gently through ferns and low branches, until he came to the edge of a wide, clear river cutting straight through the heart of the forest. The water moved fast over smooth stones, cold and clean, catching the light in bright, silver flashes. On the near bank stood the remains of an old wooden dock, weathered and gray, clearly built by hands long ago and long since abandoned. Marcus stood there for a long moment, just looking at it. Then he smiled, set down his pack, and said the words that would later become famous across half the galaxy, though he had no idea it at the time. "This'll do just fine." He spent the rest of that day repairing the old dock, using tools from his pack and wood from fallen branches nearby. By nightfall, he had a small camp set up right at the river's edge, deep inside the one place in the galaxy every other living thing had learned, for 3,000 years, to avoid. He lit a small fire. He made coffee in his tin cup. And as darkness settled over the glowing red trees, Marcus Doyle sat on the edge of the dock, dipped his boots toward the cool water, and waited to see what the forest would do. Nothing attacked him that first night. But something was watching. And far away, on a small moon orbiting Vera Prime, someone noticed a strange, tiny flicker of firelight glowing deep inside the crimson forest for the first time in living memory. The first person to notice the fire was a young Ashinar scout named Vel Thren. Vel worked at a small watch station orbiting Vera Prime, one of dozens of quiet outposts scattered along the edge of known space. Her job was simple and mostly boring. She watched sensor readings from the planet below, tracking weather patterns, mineral deposits, and the occasional trading ship. Nobody expected excitement at a post like this. Nobody expected anything from the Crimson Forest at all, because for 3,000 years, the forest had given off exactly nothing worth watching. That was what made the tiny heat signature so strange. At first, Vel thought her equipment was broken. She ran a full diagnostic. Everything checked out fine. She ran the scan again. The signature was still there, small but steady, right at the edge of the river that cut through the forest. A campfire. A small one, but undeniably real. She called her supervisor immediately. "Sir, I'm reading a heat source inside the Crimson Forest." Her supervisor, an older Ashinar named Dross Ilkhan, laughed at first, assuming it was some kind of sensor glitch or a strange mineral vein catching sunlight. But when he checked the readings himself, his laughter stopped. "That's not a mineral," he said quietly. "That's a fire." Word spread fast through the small outpost. Within a day, half the station had heard about the strange fire deep inside the forbidden forest. Some assumed it was some kind of natural phenomenon, a rare lightning strike or an underground gas vent. Others whispered older, stranger theories, stories passed down for generations about the forest waking up, or something inside it finally stirring after thousands of years of silence. Dross decided to send a small automated drone to check. It seemed like the safest option. No living being would need to risk their life, and if something happened to the drone, they would simply lose a small piece of equipment instead of a person. The drone entered the forest early the next morning. For the first 20 minutes, it sent back nothing unusual. Trees, moss, a quiet river. Then, as it moved along the riverbank, its camera caught something that made everyone in the control room go completely silent. An old man sat on a wooden dock, fishing rod in hand, humming quietly to himself. He was human. That much was obvious from his shape and clothing, though almost none of the Ashinar crew had ever seen a human up close before. Humans were a fairly new species in the wider galactic community, still mostly kept to their own small cluster of colonies. Seeing one calmly fishing in the most feared location in known space made absolutely no sense to anyone watching. "Is he alone?" one of the younger scouts asked. Dross leaned closer to the screen. "It appears so." They watched as the drone slowly circled the camp. There was a small tent, a neat stack of firewood, a metal bucket with several large silver fish inside it. And there, sitting calmly beside the man, were 3 small furred creatures none of the crew immediately recognized. Playful little animals that resembled sleek river hunters, curled up near the fire like pets. "Those are forest otters," Dross said slowly. "We have old records of them. They're supposed to be extremely shy. No confirmed sighting in over 100 years." and they're just sitting there. With him. Nobody had an answer. The drone hovered closer, trying to get a better look, and that was when the old man looked directly up at it. He did not flinch. He did not reach for a weapon. He simply raised his tin cup slightly, as if offering a small greeting, and said something the drone's microphone barely picked up over the sound of the river. "Morning. Coffee's on. If you drink coffee." The control room erupted into confused chatter. Some crew members laughed nervously. Others sat in stunned silence. Dross ordered the drone to retreat immediately, unwilling to risk losing their only source of information over what might be a trap. Reports were filed that same day. Word moved quickly up the chain of command, first to the regional Ashinar governor, then further to the Ninth Assembly, the small governing council that oversaw frontier worlds near this edge of the galaxy. Most officials assumed it was some kind of misunderstanding or exaggeration. Surely no single, unarmed being could simply walk into the Crimson Forest and set up camp without consequence. But the drone footage did not lie. Within a week, 3 more scouting attempts were made, this time from different alien groups curious about the strange reports. A pair of Kryn traders flew a small survey craft low over the tree line, hoping to confirm or deny the rumors for themselves. Their footage showed the same thing. An old human, calmly fishing, completely unharmed, seemingly unaware or unbothered by the forest's fearsome reputation. Rumors began to spread across nearby trade routes faster than any official report could keep up with. Some travelers joked that humans must simply be too foolish to know real danger. Others whispered something far more unsettling, that the forest had never actually been a monster's territory at all. That perhaps, for 3,000 years, everyone had simply been afraid of the wrong thing. Back on Vera Prime, completely unaware of the growing attention above him, Marcus Doyle spent his days doing exactly what he came to do. He fished. He fixed up his little camp. He explored small sections of the riverbank, always careful, always respectful of his surroundings, but never once acting like a man who believed he was in danger. The 3 otters, which he began calling Whiskers, Patch, and Bandit, stayed close to his camp almost every day, often trading playful antics for scraps of fish. Marcus did not know why the animals trusted him so quickly. He simply accepted it, the same easy way he accepted most things in life. He had no idea that far above him, entire star systems were beginning to whisper his name. And deeper in the forest, something far older than any drone or scout ship had also noticed the small, steady fire burning by the river, something that had not stirred in 3,000 years. 2 weeks into his stay, Marcus Doyle met the bear. He had seen signs of something large moving through the forest before that day. Broken branches high off the ground, deep prints pressed into soft mud near the riverbank, each one wider than his own boot by a wide margin. Whiskers and the other otters had grown skittish once or twice, freezing mid-play and staring off into the trees before scurrying closer to Marcus for safety. He was not foolish. He noticed all of this, but he also did not panic. Years of working on rough frontier worlds had taught him one important lesson. Most creatures, no matter how large or strange, do not want conflict any more than people do. They want food, safety, and to be left alone. Fear, more often than not, causes far more trouble than the actual danger does. So when the creature finally appeared, Marcus did not run. It happened in the late afternoon, with soft golden light slanting through the canopy above. Marcus was sitting on the edge of the dock, rod in hand, when he heard heavy footsteps approaching from the tree line behind him. He turned slowly and saw it for the first time. It was enormous, easily twice the size of the largest bear Marcus had ever seen back on Earth. With thick, dark fur and powerful shoulders built for both strength and speed. Its eyes were a deep amber color, intelligent in a way that made Marcus pause. This was not a mindless beast. This was something old, something that had clearly survived a very long time by being far smarter than it looked. The otters scattered instantly, disappearing into the underbrush. Marcus stayed exactly where he was. He did not stand up quickly. He did not reach for his knife. He simply set his fishing rod down slowly beside him and turned his body to face the creature directly, keeping his hands open and visible at his sides. "Well, hello there," he said quietly. "Big fella, aren't you?" The bear did not attack. It also did not retreat. It simply stood at the edge of the tree line, studying him with those sharp amber eyes for what felt like several long minutes. Marcus held perfectly still, breathing slow and even, doing his best to project the same calm energy he might use approaching a nervous animal on any ordinary world. Later, when scholars studied this moment through recovered forest sensor logs, they would call it one of the strangest recorded encounters in galactic history. According to those same logs, the creature Marcus met that day belonged to a species the Ashinar called the Ursidon, an ancient predator believed extinct for centuries after the last confirmed sighting near the forest's edge. Every historical account described the Ursidon as fiercely territorial, capable of tearing through armored scouts without effort. And yet, on that quiet afternoon, the last known Ursidon in the galaxy did not attack the small, unarmed human sitting calmly by the river. Instead, it slowly lowered itself down onto the mossy bank, less than 20 feet away, and simply watched him. Marcus let out a long breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Then, moving carefully, he reached into his bucket, pulled out one of the larger fish he had caught that morning, and gently tossed it onto the ground roughly halfway between them. "Figured you might be hungry too," he said. The Ursidon stared at the fish for a long moment. Then, with surprising gentleness for something so massive, it leaned forward and ate it in one smooth motion. It looked back up at Marcus afterward, almost as if waiting to see what he would do next. "All right then," Marcus said, smiling slightly. "Guess we're neighbors." From that day forward, the great bear-like creature became a near-constant presence near Marcus's camp. It never attacked him. It never showed the slightest sign of aggression toward the otters either, who slowly grew brave enough to return once they realized the danger had passed. Within a month, it was common to see all 4 animals resting near the dock together in the evenings. An old human, 3 small otters, and 1 enormous ancient predator, all sharing the same quiet stretch of riverbank. Word of this reached the watching outposts above through updated drone footage, and it caused an even bigger stir than the fire had. Scholars and scientists across several allied species began debating fiercely over what it meant. Some believed Marcus was simply lucky, an unusual case that proved nothing. Others suggested something far stranger, that perhaps the forest itself, and the creatures within it, responded not to strength or weapons, but to something else entirely. Something about calm, fearless presence that most species simply could not fake. There was an old theory, largely dismissed for centuries, that the Crimson Forest's fearsome reputation was not built entirely on physical danger. Some ancient texts, recovered from long-abandoned Ashinar ruins near the forest's edge, hinted at something called a dread field, a strange energy said to radiate from deep within the trees themselves. According to these old records, most species who entered the forest experienced overwhelming waves of fear and panic almost immediately. Fear so intense it caused disorientation, poor decisions, and in the worst cases, complete mental breakdown, long before any actual predator ever appeared. If that theory was true, it raised an enormous question. Why hadn't Marcus Doyle felt any of it? Reports were sent up the chain once again, this time reaching much higher levels of galactic leadership than before. What started as a strange curiosity about one stubborn old fisherman was slowly becoming something far more important. Something that governments, scholars, and old rival species alike could no longer afford to ignore. Meanwhile, completely unaware of the growing debate happening far above him, Marcus simply kept fishing, kept sharing meals with his strange new animal companions, and kept enjoying the quietest, most peaceful chapter of his long life. He had no idea the galaxy was about to come looking for answers. The Ninth Assembly finally decided to send someone to speak with him directly. This decision did not come easily. Several council members argued strongly against it, worried that sending an official representative into the Crimson Forest, even to meet a peaceful human, might provoke whatever ancient danger still lingered there. Others argued the opposite, insisting that ignoring the situation any longer would only allow wild rumors and dangerous misinformation to spread further across nearby systems. In the end, the council chose a single envoy for the mission, a respected Ashinar scholar named Elira Voss. Elira had spent much of her career studying old frontier legends and abandoned ruins, including several ancient texts that mentioned the Crimson Forest by its older, half-forgotten name. If anyone understood the deeper mysteries surrounding this place, it was her. She traveled to Vera Prime alone, accompanied only by a small support drone for recording purposes. The council insisted on minimal presence, worried too large a group might be seen as a threat by whatever forces protected the forest. Elira reached the tree line on a cool, misty morning. Unlike Marcus, she did feel fear as she approached, a cold, creeping unease crawling up her spine the moment she stepped past the first row of glowing red trunks. According to her own later reports, the feeling grew steadily worse the deeper she walked, pressing against her mind like an invisible weight, whispering every reason she should turn back. She did not turn back. By the time she reached the river, her hands were shaking slightly, her breathing quick and shallow. She found Marcus exactly where the drone footage always showed him, sitting calmly on his dock, fishing rod in hand, with his usual companions resting nearby. He noticed her immediately and offered a small, friendly wave. "You look like you could use some coffee," he said. Elira managed a weak laugh despite her nerves. "That may be the understatement of my career." Marcus made her a cup, and the two of them sat together by the river as Elira slowly explained everything. The centuries of missing scouts, the old legends, the strange dread field theory that had never been proven, only whispered about in old texts. She watched him closely as she spoke, half expecting some dramatic reaction. Instead, Marcus simply nodded thoughtfully. "Makes sense," he said. "I did feel something. First day I walked inches. Real quiet. Real heavy. Like the air itself was holding its breath." "But you kept walking," Elira said. "Sure did." "Why?" Marcus considered the question for a long moment before answering. I think, when you've lost something big in your life, the kind of fear that stops most people doesn't scare you the same way anymore. I already lost the thing I was most afraid of losing. Everything after that just feels smaller. Elira studied him carefully, her scholar's mind working quickly. She began to suspect something important, something that might explain far more than just Marcus's individual courage. She asked whether he had felt fear fade completely, or simply felt able to push through it despite still feeling it. Though, I still feel a little something, Marcus admitted. Every now and then. Just not enough to matter. That single answer changed everything for Elira's growing theory. According to fragments of extremely old records she had studied for years, the ancient builders of the Crimson Forest, a long-vanished civilization, sometimes referred to only as the Silent Builders, had constructed the forest not as a trap or a weapon, but as a kind of test. A guarded sanctuary meant to protect something valuable deep within its heart, accessible only to those capable of walking through overwhelming fear without being controlled by it. For 3,000 years, no visiting species had managed to pass that test. Not because they lacked courage in the way people usually think of courage, bravery in battle or facing physical danger, but because very few minds could resist that specific, deeply unsettling psychological pressure the forest generated. Most species reacted to it exactly the way their bodies were built to react to extreme danger, flooding with stress signals that made clear, calm thought almost impossible. Humans, according to Elira's growing theory, might process that kind of psychological pressure differently. Not because humans were fearless, but because human minds, shaped by an unusually wide range of extreme experiences throughout their history, seemed capable of separating the feeling of fear from the reaction to it. Marcus had felt the dread. He simply hadn't let it control his actions. If Elira's theory was correct, it meant something enormous. It meant the Crimson Forest's ancient defenses were never truly about strength, weapons, or size. They were about the mind. And for the first time in 3,000 years, someone had finally walked through that mental barrier calmly enough for the forest, and everything living inside it, to recognize him as something other than a threat. So that's why the bear didn't attack me, Marcus said slowly, piecing it together. And why the otters trust me. Possibly, Elira said. The dread field may act almost like a filter, keeping out anyone whose fear response signals aggression or danger to the creatures living here. You never gave off those signals. To them, you may simply seem safe. Marcus sat quietly with that idea for a while, watching the river flow past. That's a nice thought, he finally said. Being the safe one. For once. Before Elira left that day, she asked one final question, the one that had been sitting at the back of her mind the entire visit. Marcus, do you know what the forest was built to protect? Marcus shook his head honestly. Haven't found anything like that. Just good fishing and good company. But as Elira returned to her ship that evening, carrying detailed notes and a small stone sample from deep near the riverbed, one that seemed to hum faintly with a strange, warm energy unlike anything in known records, she couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus Doyle, without even realizing it, might be standing far closer to one of the galaxy's oldest secrets than anyone else in 3,000 years. And unfortunately, Elira was not the only one who had begun paying very close attention. Word of a possible ancient treasure inside the Crimson Forest did not stay contained for long. Despite the Ninth Assembly's efforts to keep Elira's research quiet while they studied it further, rumors always find a way to travel, especially rumors involving lost technology and ancient civilizations. Within a month, whispers reached the edges of lawless trade routes far beyond official galactic borders, eventually finding their way to a name few honest travelers wanted to hear. The Skarn Raiders. The Skarn were a loose but dangerous band of pirates and mercenaries who had spent decades hunting rumors of old, powerful technology across the galaxy's forgotten corners. Most of their previous targets had been abandoned ruins or long-dead battle stations. A living, active site tied to a long-lost civilization, protected by nothing more than one unarmed old man and a handful of animals, sounded, to them, like the easiest score of their careers. They arrived at Vera Prime roughly 6 weeks after Elira's visit, 3 armed shuttles descending quietly under the cover of a moonless night. Their plan was simple: land near the forest's edge, move in quickly, secure whatever technology or treasure existed near the river, and deal with any obstacles, human or otherwise, without hesitation. They clearly had not read Elira's reports carefully enough. The moment the Skarn shuttles crossed into the forest's outer boundary, their crews began experiencing the same overwhelming dread field Elira had described, but far more intensely, since none of them approached with anything close to calm intentions. Raiders accustomed to using fear as a weapon against others suddenly found themselves drowning in it instead. Reports later recovered from a damaged Skarn shuttle described crew members experiencing severe panic, hallucinations, and complete breakdowns in coordination within minutes of entering the tree line. Still, a smaller group of 6 heavily armed raiders managed to push through, driven more by greed than good sense, eventually stumbling toward the sound of the river. Marcus heard them coming long before he saw them. Years of frontier work had taught him to recognize the heavy, careless footsteps of armed strangers moving through unfamiliar terrain. He calmly set down his fishing rod, stood up from the dock, and turned to face the tree line just as the raiders broke through the underbrush. Their leader, a scarred Vindari mercenary named Grath, raised his weapon immediately upon seeing him. "Where's the technology?" Grath demanded, voice rough and impatient. "The old ruins. Tell us now, and maybe you walk away from this." Marcus did not reach for his knife. He did not raise his hands in surrender either. He simply stood calmly, meeting Grath's eyes without flinching. "Don't know anything about ruins," Marcus said evenly. "Just fish here." Grath sneered, clearly unconvinced, and took a threatening step forward. That was the exact moment the forest decided it had seen enough. A low, rumbling growl echoed from somewhere in the trees behind Marcus, deep and powerful enough to shake loose leaves from nearby branches. The massive Ursidon emerged from the shadows, amber eyes locked directly onto the armed intruders, every muscle in its enormous body coiled and ready. The raiders froze. At the same moment, dozens of smaller shapes began emerging from the underbrush around them. Not just Whiskers, Patch, and Bandit, but what appeared to be an entire hidden population of forest otters, previously thought nearly extinct, surrounding the intruders from every angle with sharp, alert eyes. According to later recovered recordings from the raiders' own equipment, this was the exact moment their nerve finally broke completely. Weeks of hunting rumors about a harmless old man had left them dangerously unprepared for the reality of an entire forest ecosystem ready to defend him. Grath fired one wild, panicked shot that missed everything except a nearby tree trunk. The Ursidon moved instantly, faster than something its size had any right to move, closing the distance in seconds and knocking the weapon from his hands with one powerful swipe. The remaining raiders scattered in blind panic, crashing back through the underbrush the way they came, several dropping their weapons entirely in their rush to escape the overwhelming dread now crushing down on their fractured minds. Within minutes, all six retreated completely, stumbling back toward their damaged shuttles far faster than they had entered. Sensor logs later confirmed the Skarn ships departed Vera Prime's orbit in complete disarray less than an hour later, never to return. Marcus remained standing calmly by the river throughout the entire encounter. He had not moved from that same spot the whole time. Once the danger passed, he let out a long breath and looked down at the Ursidon, now sitting calmly beside him once more. "Well," he said, patting the massive creature's shoulder gently, "guess you earned extra fish tonight." News of the failed raid reached the Ninth Assembly within days, pieced together through recovered Skarn communications and damaged shuttle logs. What could have been framed as a terrifying attack instead became something far more remarkable across nearby systems, proof that the Crimson Forest, along with the strange old human living peacefully inside it, could defend itself far better than anyone had previously believed. Elira returned to Vera Prime shortly after, this time with a small, official offer from the Assembly itself. Rather than treating the forest as a dangerous unknown to be studied and avoided, the Council proposed something new. A carefully protected research and diplomatic zone, established with Marcus's full cooperation, allowing scholars from multiple species to study the forest's mysteries safely, always under his calm, trusted presence. Marcus listened to the full proposal quietly, sipping his coffee as the river flowed steadily beside them. "So you want me to keep doing exactly what I'm already doing," he said eventually. "Just officially now." Elira smiled. "Essentially, yes." Marcus glanced over at the Ursidon resting nearby, then down at Whiskers curled up near his boots, and finally out at the calm, glowing red trees surrounding his little camp. "Guess I can live with that," he said. "Long as nobody messes with my fishing spot." There was one final detail Elira discovered, buried deep within the oldest surviving fragments of silent builder text, something she chose to share with Marcus privately before anyone else. According to those ancient records, the silent builders had never intended the Crimson Forest as a monument to fear at all. They built it as a message, meant for whichever species eventually proved calm enough and kind enough to walk through overwhelming dread without turning that fear into violence. The forest was never truly a curse. It was always a quiet invitation, waiting 3,000 years for the right visitor to finally accept it. Nobody yet knows exactly what the silent builders hoped that visitor might find or become. Elira's research continues, slowly uncovering pieces of a puzzle far older than any currently known civilization. But somewhere along a quiet river, deep inside a forest every other living being had learned to fear, an old man who simply wanted peace after a long, hard life sits patiently with his fishing rod, sharing coffee with scholars, protecting a secret bigger than he ever imagined, surrounded by animals who trust him completely. The galaxy came looking for a monster. What it found instead was something the Crimson Forest may have been waiting 3,000 years to see. Someone brave enough not because he felt no fear, but because he refused to let fear decide who he was. If this opened your eyes to how differently courage can look, let's remember the biggest lessons from Marcus Doyle's quiet, unexpected journey. Real courage was never about having no fear at all. It was about refusing to let fear control every choice. The forest never truly feared strength or weapons. It feared aggression and hidden intent. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can bring into a dangerous, unknown situation isn't a weapon at all. It's calm. If this story gave you chills, or made you see courage a little differently today, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss the next incredible HFY story, exploring what makes humanity so unexpectedly powerful across the stars. We are building an entire growing library of these stories every single week. And if you want early access to upcoming episodes, behind-the-scenes story concepts, and exclusive polls to help choose future HFY tales, check the link in the description to join our free newsletter community. Before you go, I want to hear from you directly in the comments below. If you found yourself standing at the edge of the Crimson Forest, knowing everything Marcus knew, would you have walked in? Let me know below, and I'll see you in the next story.